Hi everyone, Gundamfans here for a 37th and brand new episode of our special edition, Lore of the Universal Century. Today, we're going back again to the Zeta era, in an attempt to answer a particular question, which is... Yep, in this video, we're going to explore the Psycho Gundam development history, the models which paved the way to this iconic machine, with the lore and technological facts being covered. But let's start by the beginning. What is exactly the Psycho Gundam? Codenamed MRX-009, the Psycho Gundam was a prototype Newtype-use transformable mobile armor, developed by the Murasame laboratory for the Titans during the later stages of the Grips conflict. A new kind of Psychomu-based mobile weapon designed for complete area dominance, the Psycho Gundam was essentially a massive tactical assault platform, carrying aboard an unparalleled degree of firepower that only a new type could ever hope to muster. This superior firepower, key design feature of the Psycho Gundam, materialized in the form of an absurd amount of beam-based weaponry, which the mobile armor integrated in all of its frame. First, on its lower chest, the mobile armor mounted a total of 3 diffuse megaparticle cannons, aka scattering cannons capable of maintaining the output of the beam fired for several seconds. This would enable the numerous beams rated at 4.8 megawatts each to sweep through the battlefield with ease and decimate entire armies in a matter of seconds. Secondly, the Psycho Gundam mounted a 2 megawatt beam cannon in each of its fingers, a feature inherited from one of its forefathers, the Zeong, and which would enable the Psycho Gundam to perform deadly all-range attacks. Finally, the mobile armor also replaced the traditional Vulcans of the Gundam types for a pair of small mega beam cannons mounted on its forehead. These superior offensive assets were only matched by the mobile armor defensive abilities, with the Psycho Gundam mounting an anti-beam barrier, a protection device made of the coupling between a powerful E-field with specific reactive armor plates, resulting in higher defense against beam attacks. As a bonus, the Psycho Gundam was also outfitted with a gargantuan shield, tall and wide enough to protect it from most enemy attacks from the ground. Now, these amazing capacities were not the only assets the Psycho Gundam could rely to battle, with the mobile armor adopting a wide variety of additional features. Through a crude and primitive variable mechanism, this mobile armor could shift into an alternative mode, taking the form of a giant mobile fortress. In such mode, propelled by a Minovsky craft system to float in the air, the Psycho Gundam would dramatically increase its core defenses, gaining the ability to slowly overrun enemy terrain with a near unbreakable armor, before unleashing the full might of its diffuse megaparticle cannons. The combination of all these numerous features had however the downside of rendering the machine functioning extremely complex, making it too much of a burden to even move around for any regular pilot. This, however, was something taken into account by the Psycho Gundam design, with a massive block-type Psychomu being installed into it, linking mentally powerful new types or cyber new types with the complex interface of the machine. This would enable them to simultaneously assess the battlefield and its requirements while controlling all the features of the Psycho Gundam, without being overwhelmed by the sheer number and complexity. Unfortunately, the coupling of all these numerous features, including a Minovsky craft, a Psychomu system, multiple high-capacity generators for beam weaponry, and a variable mechanism, would cause the Psycho Gundam to require an exponential enlargement in contrast to regular mobile suits, with the 9th incarnation of the project, the Psycho Gundam Mark I, eventually reaching 40 meters of height against the 25-30 meters planned by the engineers. Worse, the eventual result ended up being extremely sluggish, lacking the remarkable maneuverability and agility from which the Gundam line was known for. Nonetheless, the Psycho Gundam would remain a monstrous asset and a major tactical weapon in the entire Titan's arsenal. But that's enough setting for today, let's dive into the lore. The year is Universal Century 80. At that time, the Earth Federation had barely managed to prevail in the bloody conflict known as the One-Year War, concluded with the Pyrrhic victory of the Battle of Abawaku. For the Federation, the first post-war years were essentially spent licking their wounds and cutting war budgets to save the economy, but down the line, a deep trauma had been formed from the scars of the war. By UC 81-82, the Federation army was now recovering, but most of the R&D departments were now stuck with the PTSD of their experience during the war. First, the blunt trauma the Earth Federation forces had developed from encountering Zeon mechanical monsters, the mobile armors, giant grotesque behemoths stuffed with weapons, like the Big Zam or the Zeong, that could face and eradicate entire fleets in a matter of seconds. With no access to Zeon technology, through numerous captured and confiscated assets, especially the ones from the famed Flanagan Institute, specialized in Newtype research, the Earth Federation engineers were now eager to muster the same power for themselves. Secondly, the Federation was now also hypnotized by their own experience with their first wonder weapon, the Gundam, with its performance at the hands of the Newtype Miracle Kid, Amuro Ray, setting an unprecedented bar of excellence that the Federation would always dream to replicate. These two aspects, fused together by this deep war trauma, would quickly result in the Federation taking action, with two different drastic measures. On one hand, the Federation Assembly approved the establishment of multiple institutes specialized in Newtype research, such as the Murasame Labs in Japan, the Augusta and Oakley Research Institute in North America, or the Pyongyang Lab in North Korea. Alongside this first measure, an investigation team was also formed and tasked to study what kind of mobile suits or mobile armors suspected Newtypes had been using during the war, being it on Zeon's side, but also on the Federation's. What exactly this investigation team studied or found out is largely unknown, but the result of their examination was eventually made available to the Newtype labs, with the team proposing the concept of installing a Psycho system into Amuro Ray's personal mobile suit, the RX-78-2 Gundam. The Murasame Labs eventually agreed to take over this proposal and refined it into the idea of a Gundam type equipped with a Psycho system with the Zeong's battle potential. As a starting ground for the project, the Murasame Labs chose the first fully fledged Newtype-use mobile suit designed by the Federation, the RX-78 NT-1, aka Gundam Alex. Upon acquiring the rights and blueprints from the Alex manufacturer, the Augusta Institute, which was another rivaling Newtype lab, the Murasame Labs started studying it and officially established their own new line of Newtype assets, with the Alex being rebaptized as MRX-001. For the following 2 years, the Murasame Labs re-evaluated the strengths and weaknesses in the Alex design, while also heavily studying Zeon's most important achievement in Newtype research, the revolutionary Psycho system. The Psycho was actually capable of converting Newtype brainwaves, the Psycho waves, into electric signals, something which had enabled some Zeon mobile armors to reintroduce long-distance wire-guided combat through cable cannons or wireless bits. By UC 82, the numerous studies carried on the Gundam and Zeon's creation led to the manufacture of the Murasame Lab's first tangible result, a mobile suit known as the MRX-002, baptized Newtype-use Prototype Gundam. An advanced mobile suit loosely based on the Gundam Alex, the Newtype-use Prototype Gundam was a step over its predecessor, finally introducing the Psycho-based remote control weapons that the Federation long coveted since the 1-year war. Through a large Psycho mounted on its backpack, the MRX-002 could control a total of 14 simple wire-guided bits, each mounting only a single beam gun, with 2 units being connected by metallic cables to the forearms, 2 on its shoulders, 2 other on its calves, and 8 being instead tied to the backpack. This backpack, storing the precious Psycho system, could in emergency cases detach from the mobile suit and operate as a heavy space fighter and possible escape pod for the pilot. Despite it being a revolutionary concept, the MRX-002 was however found to suffer from many design flaws, most of them being tied to the Psycho system. Although the Newtype-use prototype Gundam could use all its bits without issues, the large Psycho system could not be miniaturized or even descaled to mobile suit format, which means the MRX-002 was enlarged in comparison to most mobile suits, reaching the 30 meters of height. Even worse, the design used for the backpack and its onboard Psycho system was found to pose crucial weight issues, even for the large Newtype-use Gundam, which suffered from poor maneuverability and balance due to the weight distribution. Despite the addition of multiple verniers and thrusters to correct the flaw, the Murasame Labs deemed the performance inadequate, with the completed prototype being put to storage before being sold to auction, later reappearing 33 years later in the form of the Uriale fielded by the Gleam Black guns. With the failure of the MRX-002, the Murasame Labs were forced to go back to the drawing board, but not before being forced to temporarily postpone practical applications due to an interesting turn of fate. At that time, the Murasame Labs were not the only one to experiment around the Alex design, with its original manufacturer, the Augusta Labs, also pushing research in this direction. Around the same time the MRX-002 was being developed, the Augusta Labs had produced a Psycho use model designed on their own, an enhanced version of the Alex, the NTX, nicknamed Netix. Unlike the Newtype-use prototype Gundam, which was a brand new unit, the Netix was more of a steroid-fed version of the Alex, retaining the original Alex design with a massive supplementary armored backpack. This new backpack actually installed the large box-type Psycho system developed by the Flanagan Institute and enabled a new type pilot to control two massive kind of bits, capable of being used as both offensive and defensive physical weapons. Unfortunately, despite Augusta's best efforts, the NTX was as flawed as its Murasame Lab counterpart, suffering from crippling weight issues due to the large Psycho backpack, as well as being unable to control the bits should they not be cable connected. Still, the Augusta Institute figured out that the control wires of the bits could possibly be retuned to be used by all type pilots, enabling them to perform all range attacks with a much less effective degree. The discovery, which would eventually lead to Augusta developing the quasi-Psycho system and the incomes, would push the Newtype Institute to approach the Murasame Labs once again and ask their competitors to examine the NTX concepts for further research. The Murasame Labs would eventually oblige, transferring the NTX to their own design ground under the new codename MRX-003, refining the design to enhance the mobility of the unit and the bits control system, before inserting it in their own Psycho Gundam development project. In parallel to these events, the Murasame Labs were however continuing research on their own, proposing partnerships to other companies in order to fix the issues individuated in the MRX-002. Around late UC82, the Murasame Labs had already realized that aside the obvious miniaturization issues they faced for the Psycho system, mentally controlling the wire-guided Psycho weapon of any type of new Gundam while handling the mobile suit movements would prove impossible for most pilots, and at best be plainly difficult even for artificially created cyber new types. To fix this second issue, the Murasame Labs colluded with a small but renowned company, UAI, which specialized in artificial intelligence and machine learning and was affiliated with Anaheim Electronics. Together, the Murasame Labs and UAI eventually manufactured a new entry to the MRX series, the MRX-004, aka Protopsycho Gundam, not to mistake with the Protopsycho Gundam, a machine nicknamed Gigant. A design closer to what future Psycho Gundams would look like, the Protopsycho was a massive monstrosity, towering around 35 meters of height. Unlike most of its successors, the Protopsycho was rather lightly armed, only mounting Xeon-type megaparticle cannons in each of its fingers alongside two weak versions of the diffuse cannon, which only fired one beam at a time. The real innovation of the Protopsycho, however, was it being equipped with UAI top-secret AI device, enabling the mobile armor to move through the AI control to let the pilot focus on controlling the Gundam armaments. While the Protopsycho greatly moved forward the Murasame Labs project, its development was halted after a fallout with UAI, with the unit being stored in a research facility on the moon and sealed alongside its precious AI. By UC-83, UAI would decide to cut loose ends and send a unit of their own, the RX-78 Heavy Equipment Experimental Type, to destroy the base alongside the AI. During this mission, the RX-78 would awake the Protopsycho Gundam and be forced to engage it to stop the mobile armor from leaving the facility and follow our old one-year war retribution protocol that targeted Site 3. Despite the immense strength of the Gigant, the smaller Gundam was eventually able to prevail, shooting down the Psycho Gundam's head, hosting the AI, shutting down the rampaging prototype, and securing its mission completion. With UAI parting ways with the Murasame Labs, the concept of an AI taking over the mobile armor movements to relieve the new type pilot was definitely scrapped, but the Gigant really shaped what future developments would look like. The project, however, would really move forward by UC-84, with the Murasame Labs eventually acquiring the rest of Truth Federal Research as stated by the ending of Gundam Katana. Amongst the information gained, the Murasame Labs were able to get their hands on the Demon Sword program, a special program based on the exam capable of passively awakening and strengthening new type powers in measured ways, and was once mounted in the Gym Striker custom of Ito Tsurugi. By retro-engineering the Demon Sword, the Murasame Labs were able to create new kinds of Psycho Monitors, which would eventually attune and strengthen future cyber new types in terms of Psycho abilities when they would be hooked up to the Psycho Gundams. This would enable them to control the machine rather effectively despite lacking strong enough Psycho waves, as the Demon Sword inspired monitors would increase it for them to handle the Psychomus system correctly. Still, despite the discovery, the era of experiments via trial and errors was not exactly over, and so was the time of partnerships. By UC-85, the Murasame Labs had colluded with Anaheim Electronics, and using Anaheim's assets, manufactured the two next entry to the Psycho Gundam line, the twin MRX-005 and MRX-006, respectively named Psycho Gundam System Unit 1 and System Unit 2. Despite their name, the System Unit 1 and 2 bore little resemblances to any past mentioned unit, but also neither to the future Psycho Gundam original design. Instead, both units were actually more similar to the eventual Psycho Gundam Mark II, sharing a similar silhouette, albeit in a scarecrow state, and with a variable mechanism and an almost identical head. A more significant and unique feature of both these units was the presence of a massive set of mechanical wings, which threw a new kind of Psychomus system discovered by Anaheim Electronics. This new mysterious enhanced Psychomus system was one of the relics found inside the Flanagan Institute, with its functions and full abilities being deciphered by neither the Murasame Labs nor Anaheim Electronics. By July UC-85, the units were deemed to be in an operational state and were dispatched for a run test near Site 1. Before you ask, yes, this means that the Murasame Labs and Anaheim both decided it was a good idea to send into the wild not one, but two massive overpowered war machines hooked with a control system that neither of them even comprehended in the first place. To give them credit, both the System Unit 1 and 2 were unleashed only for a short test run, with both units being stuffed with a self-destruction device should anything wrong happen. And boy, did it went wrong. Merely a few minutes into the test, the wing-shaped Psychomus system of the System Unit 1 and 2 started resonating with each other, not unlike the Axis and Unicorn phenomenon, with the resonance resulting in a portal to the new type higher dimension being opened. The self-destruction failsafe obviously remained unresponsive, and merely 10 seconds after the start of the phenomenon, both units disappeared into the portal, leaving the regular dimension for good. Although the end result was catastrophic for the Murasame Labs, it was nothing in comparison to the consequences this would have on many innocent lives. The opening of the portal caused the forced awakening of hundreds of later new types in each site, with the ones from the closest colony to the portal, Bianchi in Site 1, suffering even more complications, with many of them going into a frenzied state, while many simply went insane. According to Solomon Express, the Titans' guessing operation of the colony was partially to quell the civilian anti-federal riots, yes, but also to put down the rampaging Force Awakens new types, which were also a dangerous liability from the Titans' point of view. The accident with the twin system units was again a major setback for the Psycho Gundam development project, not only because of the loss of the prototypes, but also because Nikki Hanaheim was now incented to blackmail the Murasame Labs, keeping secrecy about the event in exchange of some extra tech sharing. Nonetheless, the Murasame Labs were at least sane enough to realize that an in-depth refining stage of the Psycho system was needed before moving the project forward. To achieve this, the Murasame Labs went again back to the drawing board, and for the following year, reworked the Flanagan version of the Psycho system, finally creating their own brand new version by early UC87. At that time, the Murasame Labs received cooperation data from the Grips Noah facility run by the Titans, most notably through the price blueprints of the new completed prototype, the Gundam Mark II. Because of its high-quality design and new movable frame, the Mark II was seen as a compatible base for a testing unit of the Psycho system, with the Murasame Labs quickly manufacturing a related unit, the next entry to the MRX series, the MRX 007, aka Protopsycho Gundam. A regular-sized mobile suit, the prototype Psycho Gundam was a stark departure from previous incarnations of the MRX project. In the sense, it wasn't a finalized product, nor even a complete prototype, but rather only a beta tester for the new gear the Murasame Labs were planning to include in the final version. Amongst these shiny toys the MRX 007 was supposed to test was the reworked Psycho system, which, because of its massive size, took over the entire backpack of the machine. This new Psycho enabled the pilot to control the MRX 007 mentally, but also to use a new remote control weapon in the form of wire-guided hands, with each of them mounting only a single beam gun. In addition, the movable frame inherited from the Gundam Mark II also enabled the prototype Psycho Gundam to mount an experimental scattering cannon, which was the real predecessor to the fear diffuse cannons featured by the rest of the series. Although the MRX 007 worked as intended, with its features being hastily approved by the Murasame Labs, the mobile suit was in itself rather crappy, suffering from extremely poor weight balancing due to the massive backpack, but also numerous energy-related problems due to the rather weak generators. Most notably, the scattering cannon power source was also coupled with the rest of the machine functioning, causing a 10-second shutdown of the machine after the cannon was fired. But the Murasame Labs immediately moved forward to the next development stage. The MRX 007 continued being tested, a phase which eventually revealed multiple existing problems with the new Psycho system. Although this new variant was more controlled than preceding Psycho, not too much energy hungry, and fully understood by the researchers, its sensitivity was too much, causing its Cyber Newtype pilots to be overwhelmed by its ability. In an early testing phase, a Cyber Newtype intended to be second Murasame developed an extremely bad case of mental trauma after using it, which led to him being hospitalized for quite some time. Its replacement, third Murasame, was overwhelmed by negative emotions felt during a live test, which resulting in him going on a rampage with his killing spree ending only when an instructor destroyed the MRX 007 cockpit, mobilizing the machine and ending third Murasame's life. Still, as I said before, the Murasame Labs had already moved ahead, as always, far too early, and even before these flaws could be individuated and fixed, they had produced a finalized version of their project, the MRX 008, aka Prototype Psycho Gundam Unit 8. A towering 40 meters mobile armor rather similar to the eventual Psycho Gundam, but nicknamed the Refrigerator due to its white colors, Unit 8 was supposed to be the final step of the project, encasing directly in its frame the new Psycho system tested on the prototype Psycho Gundam, while mounting the new finger cannon's ends and chest diffuse beam cannons, alongside the right kind of generators to power all of them adequately. Ice on the cake, the height of this massive machine also took into account a new variable mechanism alongside the Minovsky-Croft system, making the mobile fortress mode a reality. According to Solomon Express, the mobile fortress was also imagined as a way to avoid another incident like the one seen in the System Unit 1 and 2, with limiters being put in place to avoid new type resonance while in fortress mode, as well as just reducing time in which the Psycho Gundam would be in mobile suit form. Now, the MRX-008 was quite complete and near operational, if it wasn't for the flaw that was passed down by the MRX-007. The flaw of the new Psycho system, aka it being too sensitive for cyber new types, had not been corrected, which resulted in the MRX-008 featuring similar issues than its predecessor. Upon completion, the MRX-008 was immediately tested, with 5th Murasame volunteering to do it to keep 4 and 6 Murasame from having to enter the machine. Like 2nd and 3rd Murasame, 5th eventually became mad during a live test, and after going berserk for a while, suffered from a stroke, killing him. This incident finally made the Murasame labs realize the critical flaw, with the research team placing additional limiters and severely reducing the sensitivity, making sure the Psycho could be safely used by the rest of the available cyber new types. And yes, I know you couldn't care less about the death of 5th Murasame, but you actually knew this kid back from Mobile Suit Gundam, being called Jill Ratoki, the little brother of Miyaru Ratoki, the Zion spy who acted as Sky love interest. So yeah, her death left our boy orphaned and then right available to be experimented upon by the Murasame labs. Cheers! Now that the flaw was fixed, the Murasame labs were eventually forced to comply to the blackmailing attempts of Anaheim Electronics, handling them to complete it Unit 8 in exchange of continual silence about the system unit's incident. By studying their new acquired assets, Anaheim were able to expand their products range by producing related Psycho Gundam units, such as the mass production type Psycho Gundam line, but also the full armor double Zeta final test unit. When Anaheim started withdrawing support from the Titans in UC-87, the Sprung's task force decided it was time for payback, leaguing with radical ex-AUK soldiers and deploying 2 mass production Psycho Gundams against Anaheim. And yes, Anaheim sold them these same units. In the mayhem, these mass production Psycho Gundams were destroyed by AUK forces, but the Titans still managed to recover the MRX-008 while crippling the Yakushiki project by destroying its main developing hub. However, the Titans would prove to be bumbling idiots, and around the time of their demise in early UC-88, they had eventually lost track of the MRX-008, with the unit being encountered unmanned by the prototype Double Zeta Gundam Type B, who managed to badly damage it during its flight test on the moon. Back in UC-87, the MRX-008 would serve as the base for the almost identical but way more stable MRX-009, aka our Psycho Gundam or Psycho Gundam Mark I. This new prototype would be manufactured in a 3 units production, with Unit 1 being manned by 4 Murasame and sent to support the Titans against the Odolmia, while Unit 2 was further enhanced and paired with a Psycho control set, enabling the pilot to control it as a remote control drone from the safety of an underground bunker. Unit 2 would be used by 4 Murasame during the Kilimanjaro episodes of Zeta Gundam and be destroyed by Jared, causing 4 deaths. As for Unit 3, it would be sealed into the Devil Nest before receiving a nitro system and remaining inactive until UC-94, where it would be deployed and destroyed against the Federation forces. And that's it for the gloomy and dark development history of the Psycho Gundam, and without losing any time, let's end this video.
But who will survive?